All right. So here we go. Yesterday we read a story called "The Fun They Had," and it was about the future, right? Children in the future, and what is different about the future for them than us? They don't have books. Printed books are not a thing there. So they found one, and it was kind of weird. It was a surprise. What else was different for them?
Something different, but they had from mechanical.
They had mechanical teachers. Their teacher was a robot that, like, on a screen projected the lessons, and it talked to them in a robotic voice, and they didn't really
project on the screen, but you're not a robot.
Yeah. We talked about how today is slightly similar, but I'm still a real person. I'm not mechanical yet, so yeah.
That the title is in the past, but the story's in the future.
Yeah, the title is from the past, but the story is kind of set in the future. And they're in the future talking about how school was like in the past, how teachers were human, and how that was weird to them because they were like, robots are smarter than humans. That can't be a thing, which I find offensive. So whatever. But I don't know about that one. At least I'm nicer than a robot, probably. So yeah, that's basically what the story was about, right? Humans did create robots. That is true. Someone had to be smart enough to program the robot correctly. Not me. Albert Einstein is dead and would be very appalled by the technology that is nowadays. So he was a mathematician, so a lot of math. If you look at that picture behind me, there's all kinds of different mathematical equations.
Did you write that on there?
No, that came with the picture, but those are the equations that he wrote or figured out. So let's go ahead and open up our story, The Fun They Had. We're going to open that up. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get our story opened up. I'll give you guys about a minute to get there and get it open. Alrighty, so just go ahead and get that story open. It looks like a lot of you guys are getting there. All right. About 30 more seconds, and then we will get going on some of the sections today. We're only going to do 3. I don't think they're super long. We're actually going to skip that one.
I'll admit something. The robots at NAU are pretty cool. Those are the only
We'll go back to it. Let me see.
The only cool robots. No,
The ones that deliver sandwiches?
My dad was putting up fence there, and one of them got
He had a
inside the
blood clot that went to his heart. He died.
Huh? And one of the robots got stuck in his fence.
Yeah, there was one time I was driving through NAU's campus, and those robots were all over the place, right? Because they like drive around and they deliver things, but they have to cross roads, right? So I was driving, and this robot was on the sidewalk, and I was at a stop sign, and I started to go, and then it started to go, so I had to stop so I didn't hit the robot, and then it stopped so it didn't hit me, and then I was like, okay, well, then I'll go, and then we did like this stop and go thing like 3 times, and I was like, just move, robot, like, oh my god, I was so mad at it. Because it's not like a human where I could be like, okay, walk across the street. Like, it's a robot. So I was like, move. Just get out of my way. I was very annoyed by it. But anyway, let's go ahead and get going today on our stuff. So we are going to work on some stuff under making meaning. Yesterday, we completed the first read chart. Something we've done many, many times before, so I think that you guys should be able to complete that one. Okay, first read chart, and then the comprehension check, also something we do every single time. This one is graded. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 points basically. One for each number on there, 1 through 5. They should be in complete sentences, please. And yeah, make sure you get that finished. That's a graded one. We are going to skip the research one. I'm not going to do that. Yeah.
Well, they say complete sentences, not incomplete sentences.
I said write them incomplete. 2 words. In.
I thought you
Complete.
said incomplete, like
No.
not complete.
No. We're going to start with close read the text today. It is 1 question.
Ooh, I got a question.
So, on this one, I guess technically 2 questions. We're going to talk about the questions that you guys might have still and some of the conclusions that we can draw. So, based off of this reading, what sort of questions do you guys have? How did the author know the future? Yeah. That's a good point. This guy died in 1992. Alex, stop talking during my lesson. This guy died in 1992, so he is definitely not alive for when technology really started to pick up and become better. And the ability to do things on technology really picked up after he had passed away. So his ability to kind of predict how the future was going to go is kind of weird, right? Because the way that he talks about robots and computers doing the work for you, not the work for you, but teaching you, it's kind of like what we're going through right now, right? Like, I may be a human, but I'm still teaching you through all of the technology for the most part. So he kind of predicted the future, which is weird, uncanny. What other questions might you have? And what other questions might you have based on the reading?
Miss Jones.
Yeah.
My internet isn't really working right now, so what do I have to finish?
Today we're going to do close read the text, analyze the text, and analyze craft and structure. So if it kind of cuts out, just do those 3 sections, okay?
Okay, I'll see you at 10.
Okay, sounds good.
Bye.
Bye. All right, so we had a couple questions in there. Marty said, is everything they do online? That's a good question. We only know Alex. You talk again and you will go somewhere else because I don't want to deal with it today. So we know that their school is online, but what about everything else? Yeah, their whole life. Do they work online? Do they have to go anywhere, or is everything online? So is everything online for them? Oops, sorry. Maybe. Maybe it's like Wall-E, how they all got fat and they just sit in chairs all the time. The movie, yeah. Why do they think our school is funny? So they thought that our school, like the way that we do school, is like a funny concept. It doesn't make sense to them because they do everything online. Any other questions that you guys might have? Let's try and get one more.
How do they make the robots?
How do they make the robots? Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's probably metal and technology, but like, yeah, like the ability for it to be a teacher is interesting, right? All right, so there's some questions that we have about our story. I'll give you guys about 30 seconds to finish typing those out. Okay, make sure you are typing these.
Wait, for the conclude part, what do we have to do on that one?
We're gonna do it in a minute. All right, so the conclusions. This is where we write a couple of conclusions. What can we say for sure after reading this story? It can be based on the story, it can be about our technology. Yeah, we can definitely say that this story is in the future. That's a conclusion we can come to.
This one is in the future by 134.
It is, yeah. The story's in the future by 134 years. Yep. It's a long time. What else can we say for sure about this story? Or about our lives?
That they're weird.
How so?
They think they're food. Yeah. No, I don't get it. Why do they make robots with food?
It's a fake story. I don't know. It's not real. It's fiction. Made up.
How are those robots smarter than you? It reminds me of what's it called? What's it called? Gentlemen, the scientist. Or the scientist in the future.
Back to the Future?
Yeah. Disney.
Oh.
The Disney movie? I thought it was like 3 parts.
No, not Back to. He's not talking about Back to the Future.
No, it's not that one.
I don't know what movie he's talking about. I don't think he knows the movie he's talking about yet.
I don't know.
He's trying to figure it out. What else can we conclude about this story? We don't know if everything's online, so we don't know what their future looks like other than school. Alright, so we don't know what the future is like other than the fact that they do school all online with robots. Other than that, it didn't talk about anything else, right? And let's come up with one more conclusion, one more thing that we can say for sure.
You might be actually. That the main character is a girl.
Yeah, but let's go a little deeper than that.
The main grandfather was a great grandfather.
Okay, so Margie's grandfather went to school like us. Good. So there's a couple of things. I'll give you guys about a minute or two to make sure you got all of this typed out, because we are just going to move on to the next section after this. Okay, about a minute. Get these typed out, please. All right, about 30 more seconds, and then we'll look at our next part. All right. Let's go ahead and look at the next one. So I'm going to close this one and get rid of the close read with the text. Done with that. Let's look at analyze the text. So we're going to look a little bit more closely at some of the things that happened in the story. This does talk about working with a group. We can't really do that because coronavirus, so we are just going to work on this together as a class. So for number 1, it says, review and clarify. With your group, aka the class, review the selection, which we kind of already did. We talked about it, we summarized it out loud. How is Margie's school different from schools of the past or present? Good, so robots teach them. Well, we have teachers, like real teachers, real people. Let's go with that. So robots teach them while we have real people that teach us. I don't know.
If robots are going to be the teacher like that, what's the thing?
I mean, I would prefer that robots didn't start teaching everybody because then I wouldn't have a job.
No one would have a job.
So, yeah. So I would prefer. Yeah, you guys are going into like socialism territory where everybody just gets everything and nobody has to work. Yeah. Yeah, kind of like the people off of Wall-E. Huh? Yep, that's true. Architect is someone that creates the designs to build buildings. Yeah, he was kind of an architect, yeah, in his own way. Okay, what else can we say that's different about schools in the future than now?
Teachers teach the same grade while robots stay with you and move out.
Okay, good. So, in the future, the robot goes at the pace of the child's learning, right? The robot teaches what the child needs. Nowadays, teachers teach just a specific grade level. Good. Jada? Not in the middle of the lesson. It would be also helpful if you were typing this out, Jada. Mm-hmm. Yeah, typically, kids that are homeschooled go actually at a faster pace than kids in real school because it's almost like how they do this in the future. So it's when students are homeschooled, they start at age 5 or whatever, right? Like normal. But depending on how fast they're learning and how well they're understanding what they're learning, by the time they're 8, they could be in 4th or 5th grade because they're learning that fast. It just depends on the kid. Whereas if you're in traditional school like this, it's difficult to go on to the next grade without to just pass grades. You can't, or skip grades, I guess is the way to put it. Yeah, there's people that as you get into junior high and high school, you can start taking more classes if you'd like to. And I'm sure that there's someone that's graduated all school at age 12 before, but I don't know who they are. But yeah, it's possible. So there's quite a few differences. First off, the robots teach these kids in the future, right? So that's just weird and different. Yeah, that's what it's called. All right. So I'll give you about 30 more seconds to finish typing this part up, and then we will go to number 2. I'm just going to close it so that it's gone. Would you guys want to learn like this? I feel like I wouldn't want to. Okay, but if you had to be learning, like you don't have a choice, you have to learn. Would you rather learn in school buildings like this or online from a robot?
Right. I'm going to do a little comprehension check. School, you can hang out with friends and play outside on the field. When you're doing online school, you can do it.
That is true. I think at school you get the social skills, right? Versus when you're stuck at home, and let's say you're an only child and you're stuck at home, like you're alone. That's kind of boring.
That's a lonely person.
Yeah. Whereas when you get to come to school, you can talk to people, make those friends. Yeah. It's different. All right, let's go ahead and look at number 2. Oh, look, number 2 doesn't have anything.
No.
It says to present your discussion, but we just already talked about it, so we're good. Let's look at number 3. This is a question we've talked about many times. So based off of this story, so using this story, I want you to explain one way how modern technology is helpful or not. Let's see. Let's go with today. So use the concept of the story, right? How they progressed with technology and it became like robots teaching kids instead of teachers. Do you think the modern technology that we have now is going to be helpful for society or harmful? Helpful or harmful? Let's go with that. So with the way that technology is progressing and getting more and more advanced, do you think that's helpful or harmful to society? Yeah, write a complete sentence here, please. All right, a complete sentence on this one. Next week. No.
There's a book that I really want. It's called Ground Zero. It's a novel.
That should be a good book. Okay, we'll do about 1 more minute to finish up writing the sentence or two about why you think that modern technology might be harmful or helpful to society. Okay, is that harmful or helpful? I think that you can come up with that answer. All right, about 30 more seconds. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this note, number 3. And I'm also going to close the whole analyze the text part. Done with that. And then we're going to do one last section today. Analyze, craft, and structure.
I don't know why, but I do not like.
This is the one that's the hardest because where you talk about different parts of writing and how and reading and stuff like that. So this is the hardest section, I think, because you're analyzing and you're looking at things deeper than just reading it and understanding the story. In these ones, you're looking at what's the plot, what's the arguments that people were writing, how did they compare and contrast. So it is harder for sure. On this one, we're going to talk about science fiction writing, though, which I think is fun. I think science fiction is probably one of the best genres of writing. I think they're more fun to read because I like fictional things, first of all. Sometimes I like to read nonfiction, where it's true things, like if I find it interesting. But I've never been the biggest fan of history or like present day events. Like I keep up to date on things, but it's not my favorite thing to do. So I prefer to read fictional things and made up stories. I really like science fiction. I think that it's a lot of fun with all the technology and things like that. And I think Skylar agrees because he keeps saying yes.
I like history of like war and stuff.
See, so yours is like historical fiction that you like, right?
Not like that. This is a book.
Yeah. So science fiction, let's read through this paragraph. It says, science fiction is a form or a genre of fiction that imagines the technology and science of the future. Science fiction stories balance technological and scientific ideas with realistic elements. Characters, events, and situations that are true to life. So they're things that could possibly happen, but the technology is more advanced than what we have today. These realistic details help readers relate to a story that may take place in a very unfamiliar place. Most science fiction includes these types of elements. There's scientific ideas, so science, right? Number 2, imaginary beings, such as futuristic robots or aliens from distant planets. These ones may not have a distant planet in this specific story, but do we have robots or aliens in this story? There's robots, not aliens, but they do have futuristic robots that are the teachers, correct? The next one is a setting that is different from Earth, or it's not on Earth, or something like that. These may be non-earthly places such as spaceships, other planets, or alternate universe. Or they can be set on Earth, but in the future. Where do you guys think the setting of this story takes place? Do you think it's on Earth?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't really necessarily say for sure, but we can kind of... But you can have a county inspector on a different planet. It's science fiction. They can make up whatever they want, right? But I think that the first sentence here kind of gives us, or 2 sentences, kind of gives us the idea that it is on Earth, just because she talks about the year that it was written, and they kind of talk about how schools in the past were like, and they reference a lot of stuff about how we teach school. So I do believe that it was on Earth. It's just a future Earth, right? And then the last part is a plot that reflects issues in society today, such as the impact of technology or even political ideas. Science fiction writers often place familiar issues into an unfamiliar setting in order to explore their complexities and understand them better. So they took, even though this was written probably in like 1980, this author took the idea of schools back then where they would go in person, a teacher would teach, all of that stuff, there's books. He took that concept and put it in the future and talked about what it would look like in the future instead. So the plot talks about things that you could imagine today, just at a futuristic level. You see how that compares? Cool. All right, let's answer some questions. Well, there's one last paragraph. It says, like all other types of literature, science fiction conveys a theme or insights into life. These themes may relate to science or technology, or they may simply relate to human nature and society. So, let's look at this number 1. This, I think this is graded, so I don't know how, let me check. I don't know how much I am going to help you out on this. Yes, Skylar, I saw you ask me something. Okay, it is graded, so I'm not going to help you out too much on it. But I'm going to guide you through it, okay? I'm gonna let Skylar ask his question first, though. I think he's gonna ask if the show Fringe is science fiction. Yeah, that's a question. I believe so. I have never seen the show, but I'm pretty sure it takes technology and things like that. Yeah. Is it a book or a show? It's a movie. Okay. See, I've never seen it, but I'm pretty sure it does take like futuristic things, and it should be science fiction. I'm pretty sure. Not entirely positive though. Good. So, number one here says use the chart to identify passages from The Fun They Had that reflect each element of science fiction. Work individually. We're not going to share our responses with the group. We're just going to work individually. So let's open this up. So what you're going to do is basically look through the passage and give examples of each of these four things. The first one is scientific ideas. So you want to look through the passage and find some sort of example that they used scientific ideas in the story. Let's do the second one together, because this one we know for sure. Imaginary beings are things like robots and aliens. Something from the story that gives us that they use scientific ideas for, yeah. Well, that's what we're going to write for number two. Because what's an imaginary being in the story? Something that, I mean, the technology itself is a scientific idea, so it could work for both. Yeah, that could work. Can you, yeah. Jada, do you still need to go? No? No? Okay, so. For imaginary beings, this one is aliens or robots or something that's just not something that we have today. Is there an example of that in this story? Yeah, a robotic teacher. So this doesn't need to be complete sentences. I just need you to tell me an example from the story that is that sort of thing. So a scientific idea is anything scientific that we don't necessarily have today. That could be an example of science fiction in the story. An alternate setting is like where it takes place. What's different about that than today? And then comments on issues in today's society. It's something that's an issue or a problem in today's society that they kind of use as the backbone of their story. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes on this one. We did one of them together, so you should at least get 1 point on this whole assignment. If not, that's sad. So go ahead and take about 4 or 5 minutes. If you need to close out of the box and look through to find some examples, that's totally fine. You don't need to take exactly what they said in the story. Just in your own words, tell me where they use that or how they use those different ideas. Not complete sentences, no. So go ahead and work on that. A setting that's not today. So, look at the notes that are on there. It tells you. What you're on the right track.
What's an alternative?
If you go back to the notes, it says what that is. The little section above it, it talks about what an alternate setting is. Again, if you go back up to the notes that we read over, it has all four of these things in the notes that we read over. There's a reason that they talk about those things before you do the charts.
Is the same thing as like alternate universes?
An alternate universe is similar, yeah. What?
It's just a scientific idea. Things like imaginary things such as systems like really
What's your question?
It's just a scientific idea.
Scientific ideas are like, how is there scientific ideas in the story? I think you guys might be overthinking this chart a little bit too much. It's just an example from the story of one of those things. Don't overthink it too much. I'll give you guys about 3 more minutes. It looks like you guys are finishing it up here. About 2 more minutes. That bottom one, comment on issues in society, is just what's something in our society today that they talk about in the story, that they fix in the story, or they also have a problem with in the story. One more minute. All right, let's go ahead and look at our next question here. So on this chart, it's really just a couple of words about those different parts of the story. So scientific ideas. What is anything scientific in the story that we don't have today? Imaginary beings we did together. They have a robotic teacher. An alternate setting is, where does it take place that's not in the present on Earth? So where does this take place, basically? And then comments on the issues in society is just what's something that's happening today in society that they are talking about in the future, right? That their story talks about. So number 2, we have 2 questions left. Number 2 and 3. Consider this possible theme. Nothing, not even great technology, like the teacher, the robotic teacher, can replace human interaction. So which details in the story would support that? So how does the story support that nothing can replace human reaction? Well, write it down. So how does this story support that nothing can replace human interactions? No, just as a side note, I guess, I've noticed that sometimes when I type the question in other words, like to just kind of give you guys another way of asking this question, that some of you guys will type down what I typed down and not answer the question. So answer the question, don't type what I typed. In this one, you need to answer the question I wrote. Okay, it's just another way of stating the question so that it makes a little bit more sense if you were confused the first way. So make sure you answer the question, don't type down the question I wrote. Okay, so answer that question. I'll give you about 2 minutes on this one. And about a minute-ish to finish this one. How does the story support that nothing can replace human interaction? Mm-hmm. All right, it looks like we might be able to move on. Yep, so I'm going to close that, and then we have one more question, and then we are done for today. So number 3 says, and I'm not going to rewrite this one because I think this is a pretty clear question. In what ways might this story be considered a warning about the future? Explain. Make sure you do the explaining part. Don't just say, because it is. I want some explanation here. So complete sentences on this one. Answer that question. In what ways might the story be considered a warning about the future? And write complete sentences. Just so you guys are aware, your grades are completely updated on PowerSchool. So if you log into PowerSchool and you see zeros within the last 2 weeks, anything past the last 2 weeks, you cannot redo or complete for credit because that was the new policy. No, don't turn it in yet. We're gonna work on it tomorrow too. Yeah. So check your grades, check any zeros that you might have, and work on any of those assignments from the past 2 weeks. I've noticed A lot of the zeros are in social studies on those readings that we did last week. I highly suggest you go and do those. A lot of you guys are not doing well in social studies because you did not complete those. And I can't give you guys a grade without you working on them or trying them. So make sure you at least attempt them so I can give you some sort of grade. Anything is better than a 0 on those assignments. Okay? So just make sure you're going back and completing some of those assignments that you might have been missing because grades are due on Friday. And if your grades are low, I have done everything I can to get you guys to bring those grades up. I tell you every week what you're missing. I do my best to get you guys to do those assignments, and if you don't do them, that's not on me. That's on you guys. Can I finish what I'm talking about? So, the responsibility is yours to get that stuff done. If it's not done, then it stays a 0, and your parents get to hear about it next week when I talk to them. I'm sure they'll love it. So.
Wait, are you gonna play this by this Friday? Because every math thing we do, every reading thing we do.
No, some of the grades from this week are going on next quarter's grades instead. Sorry. The only 2 things that are going on grades for this week are the 2 social studies things. So yesterday's grade and today's social studies are going in this quarter. Any math or ELA that we do are going on next quarter's grades. Okay. So grades are pretty much set for ELA and math, unless you had something missing. Yeah, we are done with ELA for the day. Once you finish up this section, you can get it turned. Don't turn it in. Sorry. We're gonna work on it tomorrow still. So, you can log out if you are online, and we will see you at 10 o'clock for math.